Got a very special guest now joining us from our New York City studio, attorney Douglas Wigdor, who represents one of the women accusing Harvey Weinstein of rape. His client's allegations are not part of the criminal case. However, Jane Doe, as she's referred to, is expected to testify that Weinstein raped her in his Manhattan apartment back in 2005. Douglas, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
As we get ready, it looks like this trial opening statements will begin on Wednesday. Let me start here. What you just heard in coming into this segment, that pattern of behavior, does any of it sound familiar to what your clients have been through?
It most certainly does, and not only am I representing a Jane Doe who will be testifying in the criminal case, but I also represent two other women, Wedil David and Kaja Sokola, who have similar fact patterns as well. The importance of the so-called Molineux witnesses, the witnesses who are going to testify to support the two main victims in this case, is to show Harvey Weinstein's modus operandi, how he lures women to either his hotel room or to his apartment under the guise of reading a script or getting some advantage in their career, and then he lures them there and he ends up sexually assaulting and raping them. And so you're going to hear not only from the two main victims in this case, you're going to hear from a third person, Annabella Sciorra, who is going to be part of the predatory sexual assault count. And then you're going to hear from three other women, one of whom is my client, who will testify that she was raped in 2005 here in New York at Harvey Weinstein's apartment after she had been lured to his apartment under the guise of reading a screenplay and developing her career.
So your client, Jane Doe, that's what we're referring to her as, why is she not a victim in this case?
Well, first of all, she's Jane Doe right now, but by next week, she will be known. So that's the first thing. She is doing and participating in this criminal trial only to help the prosecution and to hold Harvey Weinstein accountable for his actions. She has no civil claim. Her civil claim is barred by the statute of limitations. So her motivation, as I said, is to hold him accountable and to help the prosecution. Why is she not one of the two, or would it be a third victim? That really is a strategy for the prosecution that they've laid out when they did their indictments and when they put these forth to a grand jury. They decided that the two victims and Annabella Sciorra as the predatory sexual assault made the most sense, and then to have three other victims to support them as Molineux witnesses would give them the best chance of a criminal conviction. And I think that from what I've seen, they are very well prepared, and I think that they are in a good situation to obtain that conviction in the weeks or months to come.
It's not easy being the victim of a sexual assault, number one. Number two, it's not easy to testify at a trial, okay? Number three, it's even more difficult when you know the world is watching. So how is your client Jane Doe preparing for this moment?
Well, she's preparing because she knows that truth is on her side. And when you speak the truth, it's easy. Yes, she will undergo, no doubt, a rigorous cross-examination that will try to undermine her credibility. But at the end of the day, this to her is like ripping off that Band-Aid. She's never had the opportunity to speak publicly and to confront Harvey Weinstein for what he did to her. This will help in the healing process, of course. This is not going to be the end for her. She'll continue to suffer for the rest of her life for what happened. But in her mind, and I agree with her, I've seen this happen with so many other victims, for her, this is a cathartic process. This is a process that will enable her to hopefully move on with her life.
Something that we've heard from the defense regarding these allegations and some of these accusers is that there was a continuing relationship. They've talked about the potential, we've heard the potential about emails and other indications that the relationship between Harvey Weinstein and some of these accusers continued after the alleged assault. How about in the case of your client? What was the relationship like before and after?
Well, let me just talk generally, first of all, about that defense, because, you know, we have, as a society, have learned a lot since 2017 and the whole entire Me Too movement. And one of the things that people have learned and have become more educated about is where and how sexual assaults and rapes take place. And rape myths of sexual assaults and rapes taking place in dark alleys at knife point or gunpoint, we now understand that those are the exceptions and not the rule. And more often than not, rapes and sexual assaults occur by people who people know. They occur by people who they remain in touch with. They occur by people that they may email or text before and or after. And they occur when people don't necessarily go to the police or tell their loved ones right after these things happen. So what we're going to hear in this trial are a slew of women, six women who will testify about what happened to them at the hands of Harvey Weinstein. The defense will try and conjure up these rape myths. They're going to try and say, well, you didn't go to the police right after this happened. There was no rape kit taken. You didn't tell your boyfriend or your loved one or your parents. You didn't tell anyone for years. In fact, you went back to Harvey Weinstein. And these are the sorts of things that you're going to hear throughout this entire trial. But I think when you have six women who are going to testify about being sexually assaulted and raped, and we put it in the context of what the expert witnesses will testify as well, and where we are as a society, I think that will be completely undermined. I'm not going to talk specifically about my client's case and what the defense might be and what she's going to say. We're going to hear that soon enough, and I will come back on your show. I look forward to coming back on your show to deal with the testimony, and we can talk about it after my client testifies. But I'm confident in one thing. She is going to come across as a very trustworthy, honest, candid, forthright woman with no other motivation but to tell the truth, to help the prosecution team, to get a conviction, and to confront Harvey Weinstein for what he did to her.
How would you describe the impact that what happened back in 2005 has had on your client?
Devastating. It's had a devastating impact on her. She thinks about this often. She's had a hard time putting this past her. And this is really providing her an opportunity to try and turn to the next page, to the next chapter, and to tell her story and to support the other women who are testifying and all of the other women who aren't testifying. So this is part of a process for her. It is not easy. I can assure you that it's never easy, either whether it be a criminal case or a civil case. Testifying in court, having to undergo cross-examination, having jurors look at you, a judge look at you, the people in the courtroom look at you and judging you. These things aren't easy. But if you speak the truth and you answer the questions truthfully, then you have this confidence that comes with what you're saying that lets you speak freely.
You know, when this story first broke, what was the reaction of your client once all these women started coming forward and telling their stories and doing it in a very public way? How did that impact her?
Well, that's what the whole Me Too movement really is about. I mean, not only is it debunking these rape and sexual assault myths, but it's about women being able to come forward and share their stories. And, you know, a lot of women who suffer, they suffer silently. They feel that they blame themselves. And oftentimes, because I do a lot of these cases in the workplace as well, where a woman's been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted, she blames herself. She doesn't think anyone else has had this happen to them. And then when they come forward and have the courage to come forward, we learn that this isn't one person. Usually these sexual predators don't prey on one person. My experience is that they do it over periods of time and to many other people. And when someone comes forward, other people come forward. They have the courage to come forward, and people become comforted to know that it wasn't just them, it wasn't their fault, and that other people had similar things happen to them.
Douglas Wigdor, I know your time is very valuable. You're extremely busy, but we really do appreciate you coming on tonight, and I look forward to speaking with you again after your client has testified.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.